What's up, everybody? I'm Michael. Some of you might know me as Function on the internet, and today I'm excited to talk with you guys a little bit about DAOs and the things that really excite me about DAOs, and specifically, things are changing right now, and specifically the rules for collaboration are changing. What does this really mean, and how does this affect us as a collective, as a community, and as people that are just generally ready to participate in the industry? And to start, I want to talk about what is a DAO. How many of you guys are part of a DAO right now? Or, yeah, great, a good majority of the audience. See, a lot of the conversation that's happening around DAOs at the current moment is some of the most progressive things that have been happening. And what I mean by that is that throughout history, Socrates, Aristotle, all of these different philosophers have been discussing the concepts of self-organization, self-governance, different governance models in order to have societies that function better. And it isn't until today that we're able to actually test some of these theories in the real world, specifically because of blockchain technology. And so a lot of the conversation that I see happening around DAOs right now is filled mostly with a lot of buzzwords and a lot of experimentation, which is personally the fun part. Decentralized autonomous organization. I almost want to say blah, blah, blah when I say that, because it puts a brand new model, a brand new perspective into place, but it doesn't give us really a clear definition or a clear understanding of what is being created or what we're doing with what is being created. And the reason that I'm here really to talk to you guys today about DAOs is specifically because I think that these principles of self-organization and self-governance are what have the potential to not only reshape our industry and reshape the way that we're thinking about things, but it has the potential to change the way that each one of you are interfacing with one another. Now, the title of this talk is The Rules for Collaboration Are Changing, and the reason why it's the title is because DAOs paint a brand new possibility of what can occur. How many of you guys are creators here, builders? You create something, you would say that you're a creative individual. Hands? A good majority of you. Now let me paint a little bit of a picture for you of the previous way that you would be interfacing with groups before the existence of DAOs. See, the corporate structure is how most people understand the way that the business world works. And what happens in the corporate structure, you have a boss, a CEO. He hires you. He puts you into a position. That position is limited. It's constricted. If you're interested in marketing, cool. Maybe you want to start TikTok, but your boss says no. It's only Twitter. Maybe you're interested in development and you want to build side projects. Your boss says no. That's not inside of your scope. The traditional corporate hierarchical structure is broken, and it leaves every single individual, in my opinion, especially the ones that are inspired and wanting to co-create things, it leaves them in a position where they feel limited. And so why DAOs and why now? And what are DAOs good for? That specific thing. Self-organization. And what I mean by that, what do I mean by self-organization? I specifically mean DAOs allow for a brand new possibility to be painted with the way that we work inside of groups. Instead of your traditional method of joining an organization, figuring out exactly where you want to fit in and get hired for a specific role, DAOs paint the possibility of allowing us to create our own roles. And that's one of the most important things of an actual self-organizing natural system. Self-organizing systems are prevalent throughout nature and throughout human existence. One of the most important things that I've been studying and really understanding recently is that this concept is not something new that we need to create. And I think that's where things get a little bit confusing in the DAO conversation right now. Currently, the DAO conversation is, here's this structure, here's how we do it, let's join a Discord group, let's get into a conversation. There's a lack of organization. Nobody really knows exactly what's going on, and it's a very confusing environment inside of most DAOs. Specifically, Ape DAO has $1 billion, over $1 billion now, Ape's pumping. But they don't even have the necessary structures that allow the 20,000 plus members to self-organize and be effective. They don't even really understand the voting process just yet. They're still figuring out the one token equals one vote. And so in that question, or in that conversation, my curiosity and my question became, how are these groups, especially ones that are already in existence, 20,000 members, how are they supposed to self-organize? And in order for me to really dive in and understand how these things self-organize, I actually went backwards and I looked at wolf packs. I looked at ants. I studied lion prides. I studied herds of sheep. And one of the most interesting observations to me is that self-organization in itself is not something that is unnatural. It's actually not something that effort needs to be put into to a large degree in order to create. Wolves are a great example here. Wolves have multiple different sectors of packs, right? So as we define it up here, we've got the alpha, the beta, the delta, and the omega. And so when a wolf is born into a wolf pack, they don't just go into one of these roles. They aren't just put into a specific category. They aren't just put into a box because of the way that they were born or the specific attributes that they were born with. No, the wolf is born, and based upon the way that it interacts with its tribe, the way that it feeds, the way that it hunts, the different aspects and qualities of its growth over the first 5 to 10 years of its life, it is determined which rank the wolf fits in. Now, none of these are specifically hierarchical in the fact that the alpha wolf is not necessarily better than the beta wolf, which is not necessarily better than the delta or the omega. The most important point is that these wolves, while separated into specific categories and specific groups and specific tasks and roles based upon the way that they were born, the way that they were raised, and the specific experiences that they have, all of these groups actually interface with one another. And they do so in a way that allows each of the individual skills of the wolf to be amplified and supported by the whole. And so this is the concept of a DAO. This is my personal vision, our personal vision with our constitution, the metacanon, that we believe there's a possibility, a very large possibility, that humans can also self-organize similar to this. At the current moment, the way that I'm kind of seeing it is, it's almost as if the ego and the human tendencies and the needs to be right are the things that are actually limiting us and holding us back from being able to self-organize into different structures like this naturally. Which leads me to a little bit of our story. I am a team member with a group of 5 other guys. Shout out my boys Max and Sam right there. 2 of them are out here with me. We are all a part of Geometric Holdings. And when I came to Boulder, Colorado about two years ago, I sat down and I read the Metacanon, which is a 45-page document, a constitution, all revolving around DAOs that allows for you to utilize or actually create a DAO through an actual legal structure, as well as gives you different models of how to break down different governance and decision-making within the DAO. And when I read it, I said, okay, this document is revolutionary. It has the potential for us to really reshape the way that we do things, reshape the way that we interface with each other. And we began to put it into effect. And what I mean by that is, naturally, us 5 guys, initially 4, or now 6, but initially 4 guys, came together and we said, we're all friends. We like hanging out with each other. We like getting drunk together. We like partying together. If we were to create something, because we are all creative, We want our friendships and our relationships to be preserved, and not just preserved, but put at the forefront above the relations of business. Because as soon as money comes into play and all these other factors come into play, it can become very colluded and can become very confusing, especially if friendship is involved and you're uncertain. So we came together as a group of 5 guys. We said, we all have unique skill sets. They're all different. They're all complementary of each other, but we have no idea how to work with each other. We have no idea how us 5 individuals will be effective. We have ideas, we're creative, but we don't know whether or not this business will be successful, that business will be successful. We don't know who's specifically supposed to lead what or go in which direction. And instead of setting predetermined roles, saying, you're the CEO, you're the CMO, you're this, you're that, what our organization has allowed us to do is be complementary of one another. And what I mean by that is it's allowed each and every individual to say, this is what I'm good at. Now let me explore what that skill set looks like when interfacing with these other humans. And so it started as Uga Dojo initially. That was our first company, which has evolved into Geometric, Ratio, and Sense. And the reason I want to share this specific story with you is because the way that we are operating is based upon the principles of the Metacanon, the DAO Constitution. We essentially, while are not necessarily an open organization where people can just come in and join and do whatever they want, we do operate under DAO-like principles. Our holding company, Geometric, is specifically run by our CEO and one of our financial leads. And initially, we were all under this scope. We were all 6 of us here in one box. And what we realized was that as we progressed as a group, the way that the companies started to form started to break down and evolve naturally. So if you understand some of the constitution of ENS, for example, they talk about pods and subpods. This is essentially our pod, Geometric. And naturally, Sam and I now are over here on Ratio, which would be a subpod. Sense is Max, he's over here, and Marcus on Sense, another subpod. But none of these are separate from one another. While our entities may be separate and we all own different parts of these entities, the way that the collaboration works is intertwined. No one person would say, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm not a part of that company. Or, no, I'm not going to answer that text message because I've got other things to focus on, or I've got this and that to do. In fact, each of these wings support each other, and the only reason that any of them can be upheld or uplifted is due to the fact that they're all in alignment and collaboration with one another. And that brings me to the Metacanon. This is one of our core key documents, and you all are welcome to download it, metacanon.net. It's a core document that gives and paints a picture of a new possibility for how to structure and interface your DAO, not only as a group internally, but also externally. It works also as a legal document that you can utilize in a court of law to support the structures of a DAO. And so really, I've got 15 minutes here, and I would like to chat with you guys a little bit. I really want to open it up to questions, but really I think the main point that I want to make here before I close this off is that as the rules for collaboration change, we need to look and look at the structures and the way that we're forming these structures in a different way. Many of the DAOs I see today, whether it's just a group chat on Discord, whether it's an established DAO with discourse and multi-sigs, whether it's huge and I'm talking to Ape DAO, about how they're utilizing their voting mechanisms. At the current moment, the way we are thinking about it is limited. It's almost, I don't want to say broken, but it's close to being broken. And what I mean by that is that we've been so trained and conditioned to think about structures as organizational structures in the same hierarchical patterns as corporations and all these other megaliths have been for hundreds of years. And until we're able to actually take a different angle to realize that a DAO is not necessarily something with this specific vision and specific focus and all specific structures from the beginning, but a DAO is really, in my opinion, an expression of the chaotic nature of the universe. Anyone that's been creative, anyone that understands the creativity and understands building a business or attempting a new venture, and especially everyone in here, if you've played with crypto, you understand you cannot predict what is going to happen. Corporations are structured so that you can predict or you can attempt to predict what will happen, which is why they don't live very long. In my opinion, I think that as this concept grows, as we begin to discuss more about DAOs, what we are essentially doing is we are embracing the chaotic forms of the universe. We're embracing what's naturally occurring in nature at all times, what's naturally occurring here at this event all day, every weekend, or every party, where people are meeting new people, going into new groups, learning new things. This is what the concept of a DAO is and is leaning towards. And this, in my opinion, is one of the most important discussions that we can be having right now. Because as we learn to correlate and communicate and collaborate with each other more, we're going to be able to build better structures that are actually efficient, actually growing, and actually have the potential to reshape a lot of the discussions that we're having right now. So if you guys want to contact me, we can discuss more about DAOs. It's one of the main things that I love to do. I host Twitter Spaces all the time about these concepts, chatting with Ape DAO a lot, and a lot of different things. That's my Twitter handle. You're more than welcome to shoot me a message there. And I'd love to open it up for questions, conversations. There's a lot of people in here who have already been discussing DAOs and talking about them. I'd love to hear what everybody has to say, if there are any questions.
Thank you. Hi, one question regarding to business-to-business model. What are your experience with the DAO to business model from legal side? Do you have any experiences that DAO have some connections or correspondence with some traditional company structures?
I think that's exactly almost the thing that we're trying to discover right now. So like I said, the metacanon works as, go back here, yeah. The metacanon works as a legal document that you can utilize in a court of law to build specifically a DAO into an S Corp, into an LLC, or whatever structure that you want. At the current moment, that's what people are like trying to figure out. Even Ape DAO with $1.5 billion and 20,000 members still doesn't have like the solidified legal structures clear. So no, I don't really have any specific examples for you. If you want to check out the metacanon, it would be a great place to start and be happy to chat more. But I like that question because it is like part of like the discovery period that we're all in right now. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I know a big part of what DAOs need to do is figure out protecting themselves from legal liability in the parts where they actually touch the real world, but how do you think about limiting points of contact where that legal liability is even relevant, like keeping certain things purely on-chain or in this purely decentralized global space where the legal attack surface is really small?
That's a good question. It depends on the DAO itself and what its intentions and purposes are. You know, I think if you're creating a DAO that's like an investment group with a couple buddies and like growing that, you know, probably don't need too many deep legal structures. My curiosity becomes when you have $1.5 billion and 20,000 members, how do you actually create the legal structures necessary in order to have that like organization be able to interface with the world, which is what you're asking. And I think it's almost one of the most important discussions to have, mostly because it's unavoidable, right? Like as soon as the concept of DAOs and specific DAOs continue to grow larger, they will be forced to interface with the real world. And unless we're prepared for it and having these conversations early enough, then we're gonna end up in the same place that like crypto was early on, where China's banned it, or where there's heavy regulations and rules set upon it, you know, because the discussions weren't had with the regulators early on enough. So yes, I think the ability to have it pseudo-anonymous and undercover and on-chain, but also off the legal, out of the legal loopholes is like a benefit of crypto. It's something that's always been important for crypto. And as these structures start to grow and evolve, though, we're going to need to figure out ways to interface with the real world, or else we're just gonna be small little things, which isn't a problem, but I think like this concept has the potential to really like revolutionize like the discussion of governance in general, and there isn't a place that like is having more discussion of governance than inside of DAOs and inside of crypto. Like it has the potential to change a lot more than just crypto. So I think it's important.
Thanks, yeah. I mean, but the problem with governance is sort of the problem with all human organizations is that mostly it ends up dominated by a couple of people who are engaged, or by the largest stakers or whatever. And I'm not sure that DAOs have really, you know, overcome this problem. If you look at votes, even in successful DAOs like Curve or things like this, like the number of people who actually vote and are engaged is very small, and usually concentrated around a small group around the founders. So this is exactly the same as the existing system. And I don't know how we can create, you know, overcome that sort of fundamental part of humanity.
It's honestly a brilliant comment. You sparked me up. This is one of the main discussions that I constantly have, because my main curiosity, especially right now when talking with Ape DAO, they have $1.5 billion, I've said that 8 times, they have 20,000 members, and their voting system is literally one vote is one token. That is their voting model. And so, apologize if any of you are a part of Ape DAO or running Ape DAO, but I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And so when measuring these kind of things, some of the discussions that I've been personally having are, okay, token-based voting is important. It's part of the ecosystem. But is it the only factor? No. I think contribution needs to be measured. I think participation needs to be measured. I think reputation needs to be measured. All of these factors are important, like not just important, they're vital to the actual growth and interface of the DAO. But when you start to question, like when you start to begin to analyze different levels of measurement, the main question that me and a couple buddies have been having conversations about is, how do you measure reputation? How do you measure contribution? How do you measure participation? But how do you do so in a way that it can't be gamified? Because as soon as you define the game, there will be players that are always trying to gamify it. That is why the one token, one vote doesn't work. There will always be a whale that comes in and buys 100 million tokens and owns the large majority of the supply, or him and 5 buddies own the supply, and they push the direction of the DAO whatever they want, whichever way they want. I don't have the exact answer. This is part of the conversation. This is why I want to talk about this more. This is actually why I'm so passionate about it, because I don't think anyone has the answer yet. I think we all have pieces that we're putting together. What I've been able to correlate with the discussion with my team and with a couple other outside parties is it seems to be somewhere in the realm of token-based voting. whether that's actually owning a token, whether it's potentially like one of the ways that I've been thinking about it is you buy voting rights with your tokens by maybe staking them or locking them for periods of time. Contribution, like how much is someone actually participating in the DAO, doing active tasks, not just sitting there and clicking vote, but going out into the ecosystem, completing things that need to be done in order to evolve the DAO. Participation, simply hanging around, listening, paying attention, and most important and most ambiguous, reputation. You know, what do other people think about my contributions to the DAO? Do they think that I'm doing a good job? Do they think I'm doing a bad job? Do things that I've done in the past affect the way that I interface with the DAO now? All of these things are really, really important discussions. I don't know how to measure them yet, but it's something that I 100% agree with you. It cannot just be a flat voting system or a flat system. It doesn't work like that. Any other questions? I got a couple more minutes.
So my concern is a pragmatic one. I've skimmed through the Metacanon right now, and it seems to me there are a lot of complex mechanisms in place to prevent all sorts of things we're seeing right now. But do you envision this being something that's implemented through existing Web2 tools, Discords, Notions, whatever? So do you think it should be open that way, or should there be a concerted effort to recreate a tool set that's an open protocol on some blockchain or a group of blockchains that everybody can sort of gather around that use it as a standardized set of tools to make this actually work?
That's a good question. I love the focus on tooling. I don't think it needs to be the main focus right now. I think a lot of people are trying to be always building tools for the DAO ecosystem in general, which I think is beneficial. It's moving it forward, but the conceptualization of DAOs and how far they've come is not reached the place where tooling is needed yet, if that makes sense. And so I don't have a problem with the Discord group as a DAO. You know, I don't have a problem if you just set up a multi-sig with a couple buddies and you're chatting in Telegram. Like, I actually don't think that's an issue. The tools that are being built are beneficial, but unless the DAOs have the right concepts, the right organization, and like the right inspiration from human alignment that's just like, yo, I need to go and do this, then none of the tools fucking matter. You know, just because you set up a multi-sig does not mean you are a DAO. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting confused right now, is like, they're like, oh, well, if I just have a multi-sig and I just do this and I do that, then we're good, we're a DAO. Everybody's voting. They're participating. We got 10 people voting out of the 100. Great, we're good. No, not really. Like, how do you get that number to 20%, 40%, 50%? Like, people should want to participate in your DAO. They should be incentivized to. They should be excited to get in and realize that their contribution matters to the whole, and that the whole is also going to reward them for their contribution. But doing so in a way that's not gamified is like, it's the main curiosity right now. How do you do that without gamifying and then ending up on a hierarchical structure just like a corporation? I think I got time for one more question. Any other questions? Cool.
Can I just get the mic on? Yeah, great. So, I mean, as you said and as other people said, we can act as a DAO without the tech. I mean, it's a human problem, it's a social problem, it's not a tech problem. So, in terms of getting the people there, what would be like the most important or some of the most important factors, probably in terms of education, where we could actually get people to, you know, not even to get them there because we want them there, but for them to really consider how they want to act in this, well, it's a new world.
Well, the way that I see it is that, like, as we start to get these structures right and get them organized well, people won't even have to think about being in a DAO. They won't even have to question it. And what I mean by that is that if you're a designer, right, you should have the ability, like, in the greatest vision of a DAO, like, You should have the ability to move in and out of different spheres, in and out of different DAOs even, to contribute your skill, get paid, and continue to move on. And so I think a lot of the corporate structure right now is like, oh, you are locked in this position, you're stuck here, you can't do anything else, you can't work for that guy, you can't work for that guy. Creativity gets swallowed. After 2 or 3 years, you either feel dead or you quit, you know? And so that's why I like the concept of DAOs, and the conversation we're having is because for that exact question, it almost will be able to paint the possibility of individuals being entrepreneurial without needing to be entrepreneurial. You know, like a lot of people have great skill sets and the ability to interface with different systems and different groups, but if they're able to do that without needing to do all the other leadership and hierarchical things, they'll just go over here, do a little design work, make this thing, oh, I'm gonna do this little design work in this DAO, and then all of a sudden, you've got a system that really works for everyone. Yep. All right, that's my time. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I don't know. Appreciate you guys. I'll be around.